Astronauts aboard the International Space Station have been jolted alert by unexpected command to find shelter in case of a catastrophic collision. The astronauts were forced into their orbital lifeboats because Russia decided to blow up a big neglected satellite, sending a cloud of bullets to the space outpost. Today, we have decided to dig a little deeper to get to the bottom of this space drama, so keep watching to see what we've discovered. What exactly happened? Basically, to recap, the source of the heavy debris cloud was unclear initially, and even NASA was merely speculating at this point about the involvement of an anti-satellite or ASAT weapon. Russia, on the other hand, had earlier issued a notice to airmen, NOTAM, in a heads-up sort of way for the air traffic. They warned air trafficker to steer clear of the airspace above their facility in the country's northern coast, a site known for launching these types of missiles. But if you think Russia was transparent because of this NOTAM, you have another thing coming. Russian officials weren't clear on their use of an ASAT weapon. In fact, it wasn't until mid-afternoon on the day of the launch that the US officials were able to confirm Russia's involvement in the potentially catastrophic event. Turns out Russia, as a part of a test it was conducting, took a shot at its very own defunct satellite called Cosmos 1408 by firing a missile at it. What's an ASAT weapon? Let's talk a little bit more about what an anti-satellite weapon even is. The anti-satellite weapon, commonly known as an ASAT, refers to any weapon that has the power to temporarily damage or permanently destroy an orbiting satellite. The type of ASAT that Russia tested in today's story is known as a direct ascent kinetic anti-satellite weapon, usually launched from a launch site on ground. They aren't limited to ground launches though. They can be fired from the wings of an airplane, destroying satellites by crashing into them at high speeds. Space agencies around the globe have been working and developing and testing these anti-satellite weapons since the 1960s. Up until today, it is Russia, China, the United States, and India that have proven their ability to take down orbiting satellites. These satellites support essential services like GPS, communications, and weather forecasting. Even though Russia's ASATs are common knowledge, their newest launch came as a hostile surprise, especially to the officials over in the US. Caitlin Johnson, deputy director of the Aerospace Security Project, said, "Even though we know they have this capability, we were shocked that they chose to test it as they did. Are we sure it was Russia?" The threat of collision drove 2 Russian cosmonauts along with the rest of the team into their Soyuz spacecraft to take cover. They stayed under cover for roughly 2 hours, waiting out the bullet cloud. The safety exercise had to be repeated after a 90-minute gap, as the space station again fought its way through a cloud of heavy debris. Now, considering the fact that Russia's own were up there, it'd be strange to think that Russia was involved in this mess. Unfortunately, we can't give our Russian friends the benefit of the doubt, as officials confirmed the speculations through their state media, announcing that they did conduct weapon testing on their unused satellite. The official announcement, however, came hours after Russia apparently downplayed the whole event, without openly confirming their very large part in it. Russia's defense ministry went as far as saying that the debris produced from their test did not and would not pose a threat to the space stations and the satellites on Earth's orbit. Have other countries done similar tests? There are other countries apart from Russia that can conduct such tests, and they have. According to a report by the Secure World Foundation, China blew up one of their satellites back in 2007, adding majorly to the heavy debris problem. The United States following closely behind when it wrecked a failing recon satellite in very low orbit back in 2008. This ended up introducing some 400 pieces of space junk into our orbit. India took its time with its destructive test and shot up a satellite in 2019 in very low Earth orbit. Resultantly, most of the debris from the test burned up in the atmosphere, leaving behind only 3 traceable pieces circling the planet. So what's the big deal? If 4 other countries around the world have conducted these tests, why are we being so hard on Russia? It's not like it caused irreparable damage to the space station, so what is the big deal? The big deal is space junk. According to NASA, debris is building up, even in the vastness of space, at an alarming rate. There are more than 2,200 satellites orbiting our home planet as we speak. That's a big number, isn't it? Not big enough though, as it doesn't take into account the defective satellites, the spent rockets, and the broken up pieces from space equipment. NASA estimates around 27,000 pieces of junk are whooshing around space as we speak. Even smaller, more untraceable pieces of debris are clogging up our orbit. The Russian experiment added to the space debris by at least 10%. According to the US State Department, more than 1,500 pieces of space junk was produced from this event, and that's just the number of the bigger chunks. Again, no one can put a count on the thousands of smaller pieces floating around. What will happen to all that debris? When a missile annihilates a satellite in space, it is likely that the cloud of debris produced by the collision keeps on moving along the original orbit of the satellite. Some broken parts might find their way into higher orbits, while others will be thrown across the lower orbits. But not all the rubble will stay in orbit. Some bits and pieces of it will be boosted into completely different trajectories, and thus, the cloud of debris will expand and grow over time. Researchers and academics predict that if we continue producing space waste at the same rate, it won't be long before our very own Earth gets rings like Saturn. However, ours would be made up of all junk we produce since we ventured into space. There are parts of space junk that might not stay floating in zero gravity. That rubble will find its way back to Earth, re-entering our atmosphere similar to a meteor. Sources claim that an average of 1 object has re-entered Earth's atmosphere every day. If you don't believe us, just take a look at this list of unbelievable man-made things that have rained down on us. Time space junk rained down on us. Back in 1997, a woman from Oklahoma was struck with what had been defined as a lightweight fragment of a charred woven material. It was later identified as space debris from a Delta II booster that had found its way to Earth. More rubble from the booster included a steel propellant tank and a titanium pressure sphere. The woman, if you're wondering, came out fine without any major injuries. She was very lucky. Cosmos 954, a secret Soviet Navy satellite, re-entered our atmosphere in 1978. It shed its debris all over the frozen ground of the Canadian Arctic. The satellite, as it turns out, contained a nuclear reactor, meaning the impact scattered nuclear waste over the thousands of square miles. The United States and Canada had joint efforts and sent overflights to clean up the debris in the area. Back in 1991, the largest man-made object found its way to Earth, zipping through our atmosphere to come crashing into Earth after 9 years in orbit. The Russian space station Salyut 7's metal fragments lit up the skies of cities above Argentina, leaving the unharmed citizens in awe. So you see, we are not impervious to the dangers of space debris, even while sitting comfortably on our own home planet. It is true what they say, what goes up must eventually come back down, even when zero gravity is on your side. How are we tackling the problem of space debris? The earliest guidelines to fight the space junk hazard were issued back in the mid-1990s by NASA, and by 2002, there was an interagency space debris coordination committee to tackle the problem of man-made space debris. The 10 member nations of the committee abide by a set of guidelines in order to fight this hazard together. Apart from official committees, countless aerospace firms are dedicating their resources to fight and reduce space waste in our orbit. A few firms are repurposing satellites into space garbage trucks, using them to collect the junk floating around. Some are sticking to more ordinary methods using nets to contain the debris, while others have even used harpoons and even magnets to catch the floating junk. The political ramifications of Russia's test. Coming back to Russia's space test, the authorities have been slammed for conducting what is being labeled as a dangerous and irresponsible missile test. The space community in general has expressed its disappointment and frustration over the November 15th test. Space, time and time again, has been highlighted as a common ground, meant to be protected by all nations. Russia's latest stunt has many believing that it's trying to militarize the new frontier, as the timing of this launch seems fishy considering the rising tensions between Russia and the United States. We sure hope that's not the case. We have enough battlefields here on Earth as it is. That's about it, folks. All you need to know about Russia's cloud of bullets in space. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching!